I'm going to
I'm
go
in it.
live here.
Cool.
I'm not trying to do that.
All right, so just once I confirm we're live, we'll start rolling.
It's like the start of a race.
Yeah, you guys should be much more comfortable than someone like myself.
Oh, I don't know about that.
All right, I'll kick it off here. I'm joined here by Harvey Lewis. He is a renowned ultra runner, adventurer, teacher, and a recent winner of the Badwater 135. So Harvey, thank you for joining me. And we're also joined by Dion Leonard. He's a inspirational teacher, ultra runner, New York Times best-selling author of Finding Gobi, and just finished sixth place at Badwater 135. So really glad to be able to make this happen. And thanks for joining me.
Thanks so much, Rob.
Yeah, Rob, thanks again, and looking forward to hearing all about Harvey's phenomenal win. And yeah, it was what a race, incredible.
I mean, I'll start it off with the commonality of our group. We all started as just generally overweight guys, and somehow we found ourselves doing ultra running, and we all enjoy the stupid long distances. I mean, it's an interesting commonality. Harvey, I'll start with you. Just what was that transformation like? And I want to give the listener just some background on both you guys. And then I want to talk a lot of Badwater. I want to hear a lot about your races this year.
Yeah, absolutely. And also I want to say thanks, Dion. I'm thrilled to be here with you. And I just almost finished with his book. And it's been a real pleasure having that up in the Boundary Waters for the reading material. So it did catch me also, like your story. I'm interested to hear about that. Uh, with but my story goes further back with my weight. I was like a obese kid, a fat kid. So I was like chunking Goonies, and so I went through. I got into running like when I was a teenager, and I kind of lost my weight that way. So, um, but I it when I do think back sometimes to when I was uh, you know I was that dealing with the weight. And uh, it at that point in my life, I mean, of course, I was a kid, but I really didn't, put the pieces together in terms of like, what you're eating and how that impacts you. I just ate everything, and like, so I love desserts, and I just would eat. My mom would go to Taco Bell, and they thought we were having a party because they would order like 10,
Party
10
pack.
things. I have like a couple of my friends over, and we just see how much we could humanly eat at one time. But I really, didn't feel that great, like heartburn and like digestion, things like that are, unfortunately, like, it was really impacts you. So now it's kind of almost hard to think back to that point. But when I do, it just makes me appreciate like feel the way I feel today. Like at 45, I feel the healthiest of my life, and it's nice to have found ultras and also nutrition and the lifestyle.
How about you, Dion? You were a little overweight before getting into running. Is that correct?
I was a
It's in
little
the look.
overweight ago too. Well, actually, I think I was fitter when the
Same here.
race finished than it started. um, I guess mine's completely the opposite to Harvey's. Actually, I was a really fit kid, and the sport was actually something that got me through the teenage years. I think it's sort of well documented that I had a different to me leaving home at an early age. So sport, having family, having someone there, something to look forward to go to training throughout the week, and then play on the weekends with my fellow teammates. So throughout my teenage years, I was fit. I was skinny as a rake, and I never ran though. I was never a runner. Never liked it. Had to do it a couple of times at school. Wasn't bad at it, but just never really took to it. I guess into my early 20s is when I started to smoke cigarettes, pack a day smoker, very, very heavy drinker, and overeating. And I mean, that really led to me ballooning out to around 250 pounds, which, is a pretty big guy. And thankfully, through my wife and a couple of circumstances that happened, I got into running and lost weight through that. Just like you, Harvey, I'm 46 and probably feeling the happiest and healthiest and probably in the best shape of my life as well since I've been at least 13 years old. So running has been not only a great physical thing for me, but mentally as well. It's been a huge help to sort of deal with those things, those demons from the past.
Yeah.
Both these guys are very tall, by the way. So if you're ever going to take a picture in the middle of them, you have to be at least 6 feet tall to look normal. But let's talk a little bit about that. Harvey, you're known for your positivity. What have you utilized over those years since taking up running? It was high school or middle school?
Yeah. Yeah, I got into running in 8th grade. And I first to start off, I wanted to get in shape for football. And I was terrible in football. I was like third string defensive tackle. But we always had to do laps before practice, and I would always try really hard. So that kind of got into it that way. And then I did like 8th grade track, and I did high school track, but I never was really fast, or I normally finish towards the back of the group. And it just I did like latch on to the feeling you get from running, like that it kind of like settles yourself. Like, it's like you get that sort of zen feeling after you finish running. Like, so if you feel stressed or you feel like whatever your emotions are, running is a nice, like Dion's kind of expressing, it's like it's a great medium to deal with, like with therapy, in a sense. Yeah. So it's very therapeutic, and then just running became adventures to me. So I always associate running with adventures, and I've met so many people through it and seen so many places that always draws me to that positive, like, feeling. And I try to, if I have in a race, for example, like negative thoughts, I always try to replace those with something positive. Yeah, I always tell my team members, like, we can't have a single negative statement. Like, if you have a negative thought, you have to like switch it to something positive.
I mean, during races, do you like to talk a lot? I've been told that Dion at times does not like to talk that much during races. Do you actually like to have conversations though during Badwater, in 2021, or are you just in the zone and kind of you keep mellow?
It really varies a lot on the race, but I typically do like some moments where I enjoy talking, but then there's other moments where I definitely need to get into like a sort of meditative zone, and I just need to focus on my breathing and my form, and like just channel the energy around me in the environment. And so that experience I absolutely love, like getting into that like very deep, conscious, meditative state when you're moving forward running. But then there are other times like where I'm running a race, like for example in Big's backyard. Last October, Courtney and we survived, another, almost day together running. And like one of the big highlights of that race was like we would share usually, 2 or 4 minutes, 5 minutes, especially on the road, running together, several laps. And there were many other times where we were running our own race and doing our own pace, but those moments were really nice to like kind of connect with people. And also in Badwater this time, I got to run with Mickey, the Italian runner, a little bit, and João, the Portuguese runner, a little bit. So we ran a little bit together, and it was kind of nice to like chat back and forth, even though it was like relatively small. But my crew members, they kind of had to put up with a little more silence this year. Because I did talk, but I was like just trying to conserve my energy. Because just even like the action of like processing like conversation when you're in that heat, it feels like it takes energy from you. So you're just like trying to put every bit of energy you have towards forward momentum, and that's it.
So Dion, you got into stage races and then eventually found yourself at longer continuous races. Um, I mean, did Badwater this year feel like 135 stages? Or I mean, were you ever able to hit that meditative state because of all the kind of constant interruptions?
Yeah, that's a good point. I've only just started running back this week, and I'm like looking for the car every 2 miles now for the next the next bit of support from the crew. It's like, how do you go back now to running those longer distance races without your crew and your team there, snacks and spraying you down? I mean, Badwater is certainly something more incredible than a lot of other races, and it's phenomenal just to have all of that support there for that race. I really fell into running 100 milers by accident. I was out in China. The Gobi story had happened, and I actually knew that there was a Mount Galagong 100-mile race happening in China at the time, and that was being held by Badwater. So I reached out to them and said, look, would you like me to come out? Is there any chance I can come out to the race? Registration's already closed. And they invited me out. And that was my first 100-mile race. And Chris and the team were out there from Badwater. And little did I know that would be the start of a journey to try and get me through all the way to what happened 2 weeks ago, being on the start line of Badwater. So it's, for me, being at Badwater was quite a journey as well. And it was more than I ever thought possible, running 100 miles and 200-mile races and everything in between to get there.
Do you like to speak during races much? Do you like to talk to your crew and your pacers? Because
Well, I think there's a time and place for and you spent the whole 30 hours with me out there. You know, of time when you do want to just sort of be in your own head, your own movement, your own thought process, and thinking about everything that's going on. Plus, you're struggling in the heat and the wind and the moment as well. So you're trying to balance everything off while still being happy and positive and trying to have the trajectory to go forward as best you can. So I think there's time and place for it, isn't it? I'm normally pretty good for a stretch as well, and then it just gets to a point where I'm like, okay, I could have a run on my own now and just sort of I'll probably end up talking to myself anyway. So yeah, I think there was a few moments where I probably zoned out from the conversation, but yeah, I can listen to it more than I probably would participate in it.
I mean, really quick before we go into this year's Badwater, Harvey, you came up with doing the Arrowhead 135 right after I think it was your 2014 victory, and I thought like if any race is pretty much the ideal antithesis, like mirror image of Badwater 135, that race is down to the mile, like the opposite. What made you come up with that idea? Had that been done before you? Did you make that connection? Um, I just wanted to hear just a little bit of background on that because that idea is stuck in my head, which is never a safe idea or a safe thing. But
Oh yeah, yeah. Actually, the Arrowhead 135 is an absolute treasure. It's an incredible course, and they have the Arrowhead 135, the Brazil 135, and the Badwater 135. So they're all semi-associated, although run by different entities. So other runners have done it in the past and run the three races. And so, yeah, it just drew me in. I love that ultra running has all these different specializations. Like, I mean, Dion, the stage races. Like, it's really neat that you've done the one in Namibia, and then also the Marathon des Sables and the Gobi Ultra. Those races are so unique in terms of your preparation and execution. And the winter races are a whole nother animal. And if I didn't teach high school and I could get off more time, I'd probably go to Arrowhead every year. But it's really tough because it happens during the week. And so I kind of have to pick and choose maybe one big race a year to go to during the school year. But the environment is stunning. You're going across frozen lakes. You're pulling a sled with all your mandatory gear. And it's really interesting because you get this unique niche of ultra runners who are really hardened towards cold weather running, and to contrast that, like where you're looking at a difference of like 140 degrees, is really exciting. Going from like Death Valley to the Arrowhead International Falls region of northern Minnesota is really beautiful. But
Rob,
yeah, I'd like to do more.
Rob, don't go getting any ideas. If you're going to do Badwater next year, I'm happy to crew you there. But I'm not going out to the cold.
I'll throw you in the sled.
Oh, the trees are amazing too. Yeah, like incredible trees. Very thin and tall. You can hear like, oh, it's beautiful.
I mean, were you the first to almost win both? Or like, had
I
you
don't
heard
believe
of
so.
another
I
person
think
trying?
I think Zach Gingrich, he had won Badwater maybe in 2012, and I think he had won both in the past, but I'm not positive on that.
Is that the rule? If you
But
win Badwater, you have to show up to the start line at Arrowhead? And
I think that only a few of us have done that. Only a couple of us have done that. But I'd love to go back because it's very interesting. It's like it's very technical race, and so there's so many things you can improve upon, like your packing of your gear and getting it like just right. Yeah, it makes such a tremendous difference. There were people sled riding down the hills on their sleds, and I wasn't equipped to that. I'm like, whoa, wait, that is amazing. It was funny to watch. Like they jump on their sled and they just slide right down. Like, well, it's totally legal. But I wasn't equipped to do that with mine. I saw it was like a U-Haul truck or something.
A sled ride down into Panamint Springs would have been pretty good too.
Could you imagine that?
Yeah.
Right?
Well, Dion, I think we have to add that element to our film that we're working on. So we'll book the flights out to Minnesota. And so let's talk about Badwater 2021. I mean, I want to hear from both of you. I'll start with Dion. What were you most intimidated about going into the start line of this race?
Getting to the finish line, because it had been a bit of a journey to get there. I had some niggles from before COVID. COVID was a lengthy stretch. I mean, let's face it, still going on now, but that sort of time last year, niggles, injuries, things sort of happened outside of running that wasn't really motivating me to run. It was a difficult sort of process, and I was considering going to Cocodona 250 this year, and it really was sort of, I was hoping that would motivate me to get back running and want to get out and start pushing again, but I just could not find the motivation to get going again. Put my name into the Badwater hat, got drawn for that, and it was a sudden realization back in February that this race was soon going to be around the corner, and I had to get out and start running and lose some weight and get motivated and get off the couch and get going again and stop sort of, I guess, making excuses and reaching for a beer every day and reach for the trainers instead. So for me, the 4 months, 5 months, whatever it was a real battle against fitness and really putting my body under pressure as well to drop a few kilos, get fit, but also then the injuries were playing up as well. So on the start line, I wasn't so concerned about the distance necessarily from a 135-mile point of view. It was more just every people here all putting their time, money, commitment to be there to support me. I was there. It's cost a lot of money to be there. It was like, I just want to make this. I just wanted to get to the finish line. So I didn't care what position, at what time. I really just wanted to make it happen for everyone that was there for me. That was the pressure.
Dion, you're originally from Queensland, Australia, and
That's right.
you've lived in Edinburgh, Scotland, and now are you actually a resident in the U.S. or what is are you now in Las Vegas?
We are residents, I guess, temporary residents of the US.
Okay.
So I have a 3-year visa, and we've been sort of traveling throughout, luckily enough to be able to stay in Arizona and Las Vegas, and currently we're up in Oregon. So yeah, so we're sort of experiencing a lot of the US and just sort of getting out and making the most of the adventure.
That's really neat. Yeah, that could impact your training too, based on where you're living. Yeah, it makes it more challenging in certain places, maybe than other places. And were you living in Vegas up until Badwater, like a couple of months, or? Yeah.
Well, we were there for a month, which was great because we had, the heat wave came through, quickly adapted to the heat. The heat's never an issue really for me, and it's been one of my strengths. So going into the race, my mindset and our sort of game plan was always just to take it easy, but just be continual and just be sort of pushing all day, but not blowing a gasket at one end, not going too slow, and just try and pick people off at the end. And I think we came through the field from about 23rd to 16th and then really started to pick people off the last 30, 40 miles. And that was the game plan all along, was to really get through 3/4 of the race and then think about what we can do to get a half decent result.
That's pretty huge to go from 23rd to 7th. That's really neat. And did you start making that movement around the midpoint at mile 72, or where did you start to really start to pass people at that point?
I guess it is really time to shout out to Oswald Lopez team, who helped me the climb out of Panamint Springs. I didn't stop in Panamint Springs. I made a conscious point there. There was a lot of people with their crew there, and I wanted to get through that point quite quickly and just sort of see if I could push on a little bit. I got a little bit caught out in that climb coming up out of Panamint. The heat was the hottest part of the day, and I struggled a little bit. Got to the car park, one of the car parks along the climb there, and I was really, really struggling, and sort of got sat down, some towels on me from my own crew, and the Lopez team were watching me, and I wasn't in good shape, and they came out of the car and helped put towels on the right pressure points, gave me some liquid, got some ice under my chest. We're battling for position as well with this team, and that was not a consideration for them at all. They were just could see that I needed help. They cooled me down so well that I actually started to pick up and run well from that point onwards. And but I said to them at the finish line the next day at the awards, I said, how appreciative and thankful I was and how great sportsmanship it was. And they were so happy for me that I went on and got into 6th place and had a great race. And I think that just shows you the camaraderie of Badwater is like nothing else.
Yeah, Oswaldo is he is just amazing like that. I mean, the one time I'll just say shout out to him because the year he won the race in 2011, the Brazilian who had won the previous year, he had just gotten to a point where he was going to pass him, and the guy had went in his car. Instead of just running past the car, he actually stopped and tried to get the guy out of the car before continuing on.
Wow.
And that's his entire demeanor always. Yeah, I mean you see that throughout the I think the field, but Oswaldo is a special character.
Yeah, it was a phenomenal moment, and Rob, you were there to witness it as well, and we were just blown away.
I mean, my jaw was it hit the ground. I mean, it was probably the kindest act of sportsmanship, and it went even beyond sportsmanship. It's hard to describe. And I was filming Dion as he's suffering. I'm looking at him we gotta cool this guy down. He's his engine's gonna overburn here. And right as I'm thinking that out of the right side, Oswaldo's crew came over, gave their own resources to Dion, and I basically dropped my camera and was like trying to help Dion. I wish I caught that moment, but more importantly, anytime I was in a predicament, it was always help Dion finish the race first and foremost. So it was a special moment. But I do want Harvey. This was your 10th time running Badwater. Is that correct?
Yeah, it was my 10th time. And so going into the race, I would say probably my biggest concern was like riding that line where you red line. Trying to just keep myself as close as I can to the highest I can get, the furthest performance without redlining. And also, I was really with it being my 10th Badwater. I mean, every year I go out now, I was trying to. With Badwater, I just love the race, so I'm always trying to go out and win the race now. And with it being my 10th, I had a little added you know, engine to want to do well. And I can't control whatever else is going to happen in terms of other runners and like who is going to be really strong or push me and things like that. But I was just trying to get the right balance of hitting the right pace, which Dion probably can tell you as well. It was a bit challenging this year because of the headwind. So in the 10 years I've run the race, we did in the back in 2011 and 12, we had like a strong headwind going up Talons Pass during a daytime race. That was pretty brutal. It's like getting a hair dryer on you. But doing the race this year, where it seemed like the first 35 miles, we had a really strong headwind, and that's like really different. Like in fact, like in 2019, we had like the equivalent of that wind at our back. So it's like to have that headwind pushing on you really takes a lot more energy, and it's a bit challenging when you're not used to running in a desert where you have like 50-mile stretches in front of you, of finding that balance of where is that that happy pace where you're not like over you're overdoing it with your energy use, and it's like it's tough to find that balance.
Harvey, did you so throughout that evening stage on the first night, did you actually sit back, let a couple of the runners maybe ahead of you? I'm not sure what position you're actually in throughout that, but did you sort of sit back, let some of them do the work through that headwind stage, or were you right at the front battling? I mean, there's a lot of energy being lost probably in that first part of the stage.
Right. And it's also, I enjoyed reading about your book. You're talking about that in you had another guy who you were cutting the wind for him, like throughout the whole race, and then or that stage, and then he passed you in like the last 2 miles or something ridiculous like that, which is really, we don't have any formal rules in Badwater, but it's like if you're going to be running several miles, it's kind of nice to like have some sort of like we'll switch type fairness into the equation. What we did the first 3 miles, there was 5 of us that kind of went out in the lead. Igor, there was Dan McHugh from Colorado, there was Mickey the Italian, myself, and the Portuguese runner. And once we got to we were running at a pace that was too fast. It was the first few miles. But once we got to mile 4 or 5, Dan and Igor, they broke off. They started running they just continued running that speed. And then we kind of slightly slowed down a bit. And then I just said to Zhao and Mickey, I said, look, it makes more sense for us to collaborate in every half mile. Let's switch with who's leading the group, because I figured that other runners possibly were in packs behind us, or we're running too fast, and a runner behind us is going to catch us in the second half of the race because we're using too much energy. So we were able to do that for a while. Zhao, like he had something hit him at about mile 22, and then Mickey had something hit him as well, like mile 30 or so. So they end up separating. Then we were like kind of running solo to but I also felt you felt it like on that second mountain, and usually that's one of my strongest segments is the second mountain, and this year was my most difficult segment, and I really struggled getting up that second segment, and so I must have done something. I have an imbalance in the equation somewhere in the first 72 miles, but I'm not sure where it is exactly. It's like someone trying to figure out the recipe and what exactly, where was the point that you probably over pushed, because I also felt that on the second mountain. And my finish could have been better if I had run the first half a little better.
I guess over 130 away. It's just how you manage through it, isn't it? So just happened to be the hottest part of the day climbing up there. So yeah, I actually remember passing the Portuguese runner. I think it was around 80 or 90 miles in, and he was suffering from actually being too cold, which was
really?
Just goes to show you the sort of struggle that your body's in. You can be. It was still 100 degrees plus, and he's sitting in a chair shivering, and they're struggling to try and warm him up. And the body just goes through so much throughout that whole race. I noticed in the first evening there was a lot of people vomiting, which I hadn't seen at a race like that. I don't know if that was the headwind or if it's because you're starting 11 o'clock at night and the heat and the wind, and it's all those three things combined. But even I had some struggle with that as well, which was very unique for me. I never really have any stomach trouble.
I mean,
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Rob.
No, I was just going to say, Michael in the chat room asked how the 11 p.m. start affects your race, because neither you guys have the advantage of hallucinating like I do during races. It sounds like both you guys just never hallucinate. You're just not pushing yourselves hard enough, apparently. But did the 11 p.m. start affect you guys at all? I mean, probably by the end you're just exhausted, but in any other ways that people might not be aware of?
Well, the 11 p.m. start didn't affect me. It was the person that was in the room next to me at 7 o'clock in the morning that was having a loud phone conversation that affected me because I woke up early and I never really got back to sleep throughout the whole day, which you've got until leaving the hotel at 10 o'clock at night. So that was a little bit frustrating to not probably get the rest. So when you get to the finish line, you've done 30 hours, you've still got to get back down to Lone Pine. You think back, well, I was really up since 7 o'clock Monday morning. It's a long, long time to be awake and alert and thinking and having your car there every 2 miles. There's conversations and thoughts and trying to pick off runners as we were towards the end. But 11 o'clock, it adds another element of difficulty, that's for sure. You have time to sleep, it's time to rest. You've probably had a nice meal normally. And so getting up and having to run and then having the headwind throw in the 100-degree heat was to begin with.
Yeah, I think it's a bit tricky, the 11 o'clock start. The neat thing about Badwater is we actually have a great international contingent. So we usually get 20 or 25 international racers. And so you might think like, well, someone who's based in California is going to have an advantage over someone who's coming from Japan or Poland. But I think that, starting the race at 11 p.m., it kind of shifts all that around. So, if you're coming from like, a 8 or 10 hour time difference, actually, it might actually work to your advantage. So morning. You can make it, you can make it work to your advantage. So personally, what I've found is that when I travel from Eastern Standard Time, it's a 3-hour difference. And when we arrive into Vegas, we always stage from Vegas, and I always stay on Eastern Standard Time the whole time up to Badwater, because the first couple of years I did this, I would get to Vegas and I would go to bed at like 10:30, which is really like 1:30 Ohio time, and then I'd wake up at like 7 Ohio time, which is like 4 Vegas time. Like so I would get like 3 or 4 hours of sleep, and I'm like, geez, it's like it's 4 a.m., 5 a.m. in Vegas, and I can't go back to sleep. So I always stay on my Cincinnati time when I come out to Badwater. And yeah, I'm very conscious about trying to just, even if I'm just like laying in bed the day before the race, I can't fall asleep, just like laying there for like a couple hours, just resting my body. It's kind of strange. It's like I'm always go, go, go. But the day of the race, I try to like be as like calm and relaxed and just lay in the bed, walk around, go to the pool a little bit for a minute, hot tub for a minute, whatever, and then just stay relaxed. But it is very tricky, and it really messes with some people.
And I'll throw another random one in. Harvey, what's your heat training like? Do you do anything out of the ordinary? Because Dion, I think we've talked about this prior, and you just ran a few times in hotter conditions, and you really didn't change too much, correct, Dion?
That's right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
You had that room that's staged with the heaters and the treadmill, which is pretty cool. Like you ramp up the temperature there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Those days back in Edinburgh, having the treadmill and then going to compete in desert races, the multi-stage races, that was the best I could do. I mean, if it gets to 80 degrees in summer in Edinburgh, you're doing well. So turn up in a desert where it's over 115, 120, it's a bit of a struggle. But for this one, I was lucky enough just to be able to run. We've had a really warm summer in the US anyway. So for me, that's enough. And I think, a lot of that comes from my growing up in a really hot environment in middle of Australia. So
Yeah. One of the things that first drew me into Badwater was the film Running on the Sun. I don't know if you've seen it, guys.
Yeah.
It's an old classic documentary. But I was so fascinated by all these eclectic people that had their own modes of training, whether it was like in their laundry room or pulling a tire, wearing a coat. So, I mean, it's really interesting because you can adapt your body. You can train no matter where you are on the planet. You just have to use your creativity. But for me, I'm fortunate that I live in Ohio, or I'll be traveling somewhere, and it's I'll just run in the warm part of the day. I'll wear like extra layers a couple times a week. COVID affected things. A chance to go and use the sauna a handful of times, where I might want to do that a little bit more. But and I kind of enjoy that. I think it's kind of fun to sit in the sauna. It's feels like a detox to me. So yeah, I don't know, something about the heat. It's like I mean, I know they have hot yoga, but I don't know, it's something about the heat that it just kind of does have some sort of impact on your psyche when you're doing something like athletic. I mean, I don't know, it's just there's something like animalistic or something that draws us in. I share the passion for the desert, like with Dion on this.
How many times have the police been called while your mid-June run or your mid-July or whatever run, fully dressed, like with a coat on, like winter gear on?
Right.
Yeah, and it's muggy, right, in Ohio, so that's another element.
Yeah, it's a bit muggy. Yeah, the neighbors kind of they know already, so it's like, oh, Harvey, geez.
We've already called the police a long time ago.
Right, not respond.
It's okay. He's a crazy runner.
Right.
Harvey, I'm keen to know, and sorry, Rob, if you I know you're going to ask this question. I'm really keen to know, at what moment throughout the race you either knew that you were catching the leader, or there was just a point when you passed the leader, whether something happened.
Yeah.
What point when you really thought you could win, the mindset around that, the mindset of you still chasing first, and just what was going on in your mind, did you know that was gonna? It was possible you were working still towards that, or had you sort of backed off a bit? Where were you at when that moment sort of occurred?
Yeah. Well, from the beginning, I really just was dreaming to win the race. Like, I mean, it doesn't matter if you win or you finish last, but I was just really pushing myself to try to win the race. And so like that first pack of 5 people, and I'm looking around at the runners, and I know Mickey has won the race before. He's a very strong runner. I know that, and I don't know Igor, the Ukrainian. I didn't know Zhao. I didn't know his capacity. I didn't know a lot of people's capacities. But then I got to checkpoint at mile 42 at Stovepipe, and I was in second, and I was 20 minutes behind Igor. And so at that point, it was reminding me a little bit of 2019, where I was chasing after the Japanese champion who got the course record. And so I didn't know if Igor is going to like continue to like expand out his lead, or if there's I'm just hanging on to clinging on to that rope of hope that I'm going to be able to like get him at some point. And then going up that from mile 42 to 72, I ran a really good segment. I ran Uptown's Pass probably as well as I ever have in the past. And then coming down, I averaged like an 8:15 mile coming down the mountain there and into Stovepipe Wells. I'm sorry, Panamint at mile 72. Yeah, I ran a really strong segment. And when I got to that to Panamint, he had gained 10 more minutes. So he went from 20 minutes to 30 minutes on me. And I had just finished executing like a pure, almost a purely perfect segment. And he gained 10 more minutes on me, in a matter of like, I was at 20 miles or something. So, then I'm like, okay, like that's pretty good on his part. But I, like you did, I just like, I didn't really, actually, I went quickly to the restroom, and that was my first time stopping for like a minute, and I like was continuing on. And going up that mountain, then I started really struggling. Like I don't know, it was like the heat, the redlining a bit, not hitting the right pace, and I like just was. I went over to my vehicle a couple times just to look in the cooler because nothing was really appealing to me. And I'm like, where is it? Is there anything I left here? Oh, is that Gobi? Gobi saying hello.
Hi, Harvey.
Yeah, that was good. Hello. So yeah, we're gonna introduce Gobi and Carly here shortly. So yeah, then I got up. I'm just like hanging on still. Like I'm like, well, I'm just still like fighting every 100 meters to do the best I can. And then I got to mile 90 checkpoint at Darwin, and I find out there that even though I had such a rough segment from 72 to 90, the leader gained only 5 minutes on me. So now he's 35 minutes ahead. So I knew at that point that he was feeling it as well, because if I just went through like the worst segment I've had in a while on that segment, and I knew that he only gave 5 minutes on me. Like then something is not right for him. So then at that point, I'm just like, it just kind of kicked, and I just turned and I said, all right, we're gonna go. And I said like some crazy shit's about to happen. And so I got to him, and then they're just like, okay, here we going. And then like 5 minutes later, a fighter jet buzzed over top of us, and it was like we were both like cheering like our team had just won the World Cup or something. Like, the fighter jet's probably like, what is going on? These people are like trying to attack my plane. So and then just boom, and we just were going like 8 minutes, 8 minutes, 8 minutes. And then we get about 5 miles down the road, and my team says, we cite the next runner. Like we see Igor, and he had like been in his vehicle or something like that. So, but then once he saw my team, he took off, and he had like a second wind. So then it took me another.
I've lost Robbie.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if I can hear Harvey right now. until we get Harvey back, Dion, you went through a similar rough patch on that second climb. Is that correct? Is that a similar spot that Harvey had trouble with? Is that correct?
Yeah, and I just sort of springs flying through on their sides. It was such a rush to see that. So those little things when you're out there.
Yeah, so you had a fighter jet buzz over you guys. Where was this?
That was through Panamint Springs. The flat section in the Panamint came flying through on the side, and it was just one
Maybe
of those moments.
100
Just
feet, like
yeah,
maybe 100 feet above us.
just like you were explaining there, Harvey. Like just gives you that buzz, gives you that rush to keep going, keep pushing. And one of the amazing things about running the race that I was never really aware of beforehand was just the beauty that surrounds it. Just there's so much to see and to look at. It's not just the road of death for 135 miles. It's pretty incredible beauty out there. And I've found myself actually now the last week or so saying to my wife, Lucia, hey, we got to go back there and just, hang out in some of these spots and go and do some of the hikes. And I need to get up that mountain, out Mount Whitney, and check it out as well. And so for me, there's a lot of reason to go back, and probably not for the race again, but definitely to check it out.
Well, we'd love to have you back. I hope you do consider it. Yeah, I mean, you did really phenomenal to finish second. You're running your first time, and I think you could have even a stronger finish next time.
Well, something you mentioned earlier about Arrowhead, it's definitely, we had a rookie team. I was a rookie runner. We've learned so much. And as you mentioned earlier with Arrowhead, you go back and you fine tune these elements, and you know which parts of the race you can attack. I mean, I hadn't even driven the course, so I didn't know what I was in for all day. And, that was part of the fun for all of us. It was an adventure for all of us. But we were there to try and do well. So for me, yeah, there is always that little element as to what time could you do, of course. But
Yeah.
Rob's going to go next year, so maybe he'll invite me out to crew and pace him.
That's incredible.
If I get in, I'll run it, and maybe that'll be the film. Just Dion trying to crew and pace. I'll just have you and Lucia, and that's it. See if you guys can make it through. But in all honesty, so Harvey, you cut out there as you were explaining passing, kind of going into first place. I was trying to hear kind of what mile were you at, what's going through your mind as this is all transpiring, and you're going into probably a lot of climbing, and I just don't know what time of day it is. Just walk us through what happened there.
Yeah, and hopefully we're still connected here. But basically, the real climax was when we got to about 9 minutes away from Igor. And so his team, they saw us. In fact, their vehicle, they drove back on the course to check out what was happening with me and my pacer, who's of course running behind me, just to see how we looked or that sort of thing. And it was a really, it was an exciting experience. It was like playing a chess match. You got some really critical moves here. So my team is really experienced. They're phenomenal. My friend Matt Garrett, he's crewed for me 9 times.
Wow.
Max has crewed for me in 3 big races, which I was able to win. Judd has crewed for me in bigs, and Alex has crewed for me at the 24-hour World Championship. So I mean, it's my team was just very solid, and I mean, Oswaldo has an amazing team. You guys had a strong team as well, but that team is really helpful in these situations. So in fact, I always tell my team. I'm giving away all sorts of secrets here, but I always tell my team that you have to maintain your poker face. When you're really competing those for those top positions. And like, yeah. So, I mean, Igor's team that came back to see us, and I could see on their faces as they drove by us, like, like this looks like, oh shit, what has just happened? It's like you don't want, they were stride. Igor was stride, like he really was fighting. I know he was feeling it at the time, but it's like when you're the hunter or the hunted. It's like it's kind of tough when someone's running down on your back, and like I have like I know I'm watching where he's clicking at that point of reference. I know how much time it is point me to there. It's easier in some senses to come from that position where I was in chase. So I just tried to maintain like good form, keep like at a steady pace, not get too excited like 1 mile and like drop the pace for 1 mile and then destroy myself, but just keep a steady, strong pace and like take my time to catch them. Like, whatever time it would be okay. If it takes 25 miles or it takes Mount Whitney, just take my time to catch them, not try to catch them too fast. And then just trying to stay cool and hydrated. It really makes a difference.
What's going through your head when you hit Lone Pine, which I feel like you guys ran way too fast. You couldn't get the amazing epic view of going up Mount Whitney. What's going through your head at Lone Pine? And Dion, I'm going to ask you the same thing because you took one bite of a cheeseburger and just threw it to the ground and gunned it.
Well, and Harvey, how much was the time that you had on Igor there at Lone Pine?
Well, okay, so I eventually passed Igor at mile 104, and they were phenomenal. Like we both gave like a positive gesture to one another, and like it was nice because we were pushing each other to be our best. Period. It's like that was really exciting. So from that point on, I didn't really know how far back Igor was. I knew we probably had at least a couple miles on him, but I didn't know how far back he was. So I was just running defense mode, running like as evenly and relaxed as I can without overdoing it, but not trying too hard because I knew I had a lead that I could like, keep if I didn't like blow myself up. Yeah. So and when I came into Lone Pine, it was just like, okay, now I got 13 more miles, get up to the top, and let's just be consistent. Don't like do anything stupid, and do the best you can. And I was also like Dion was saying, I've had very limited or very few times in my life where I've really struggled with like nutrition. And in this race, I had like 5 years ago, I think was the last time I threw up in the Gobi Desert. In the Gobi Trail Ultra is a desert race. I think it was put together by different organizers than yours. But I threw up there in 2016. In this race, after I passed the leader, my crew kind of like, they had a little mishap with getting me a drink and ice, and I got overheated like in just a single mile. And I ended up throwing up, and I threw up 2 more times, like between passing the leader and going to Lone Pine. So I was just like, the only thing that was appealing to me once I got to Lone Pine was harmless coconut water. They're not a sponsor or anything. It's just like a really high quality coconut water.
With pineapple or no pineapple?
No pineapple. No pineapple. Yeah. I don't know if they have pineapple in theirs. Like they might. But it was the only thing that appealed to me. And then I started, also they found like I never have had this in my whole life in a race, but almond milk and like my Power O cereal. Like it's the only thing I could eat. I don't know. It was kind of crazy. So I was going up, and even when I was doing that, it was like such little morsels. So I would like have a potato chip, do a half a mile, have a grape, do a half mile. I mean, it's like I'm going on like fumes here, but it's like the coconut water was nice, and it's just like hang on, keep going, keep steady. And it also just, there were times that I had to say, I need to slow down and just appreciate this moment. Like just look at the mountain and appreciate, being in the lead at this point and just keep on fighting for it.
I
Dion,
quite
how
enjoyed.
was your Lone Pine? Oh, go
I
ahead.
was going to say, I quite enjoyed looking back up as you walked up the mountain. You could see all of the cars down below to your right there, and thinking just how far you'd come throughout the day. I mean, that climb's just so phenomenally beautiful. And I remember switching my head torch off at one point and just checking out the stars and making sure I made the most of it as well. Coming through Lone Pine for myself was a bit of actually, I felt I was struggling to eat still. The crew had actually got some burgers and some things from McDonald's, and they were all super excited to be eating real food again. And I thought I might try a mouthful, and it didn't work. And I left the Lone Pine actually in 8th position, and it was like, okay, we knew 7th position had only just left, so that was sort of within our grasp to try and take that position. And actually leaving Lone Pine, I got a really good sort of 4th or 5th wind, and started to motor up there. And we all took turns. The crew all took turns at pacing me at certain points along the way and keeping it fresh, trying to keep me going. And the pace was phenomenal. I think we actually was probably the only time we were quicker than you, Harvey. I think we were quickest from Lone Pine to the finish out of everyone, which was pretty phenomenal. Just where we were at and the movements we were making was like, oh, I wish it. But then we got to the last checkpoint. There's that little sort of checkpoint in between the climb from Lone Pine upwards, and they said, actually, you're in 6th position. So we all got super excited. I was just trying to keep it in check because 7th position wasn't far behind us, and everyone was so excited about being in 6th now. I was just like, calm down, everyone. Let's just get to the finish line.
Yeah, 5K to go.
It's still 5Ks,
Harvey knows those miles well. 500 feet of gain per mile into the finish, because you guys hadn't already been through anything prior to that. So
I mean, the switchbacks and everything just continued on, and then we were trying to work out if we could break 30 hours. And personally, I didn't really care one little bit, but it was, of course, it's one of those things. It's like, okay, maybe we can, but by the time we kind of got close to the finish, I was spent. And I tried to run in, but we didn't do it. But I don't need to go back just to do that. That's for sure.
I mean, we were doing 16-minute flat pace up those last 3, which was, for me, mind-boggling, because I had fresh legs and I was really trying hard to keep up and not fall behind, because there's nothing worse than a crew or a pacer that's half a mile behind you. Harvey, tell me about those last 3, that last 5K type distance into the finish line, and then what was going through your head when you crossed the finish line winning.
Yeah, it was honestly, I was still a little edgy about anyone trailing behind us up to maybe like about 4 or 5 miles out, and then once we got to the switchbacks, it was at that point I thought we really have this. We have this. I can't do anything to screw this up, But also, it was just also an opportunity. It was like reflecting back across the whole year, and just like this had been a dream of mine. So to like have it come to fruition, I was just trying to stay in that moment and like just appreciate and be grateful. Just like savor it, just savor that moment, like where you have a dream and it's a very difficult thing, and it actually ends up being more difficult than you even anticipate. And then to have all that work come together and to see it to come to reality from where you had thought it, like that just was incredible feeling. So I was just trying to soak in the nature. I mean, I love that last switchbacks. They're brutal. They eat at you feel the burn in your legs, But you look out, and like you said, Dion, you can like see the cars lined all the way out towards Darwin. You know, it's like you
Yeah.
can look back across 40 some miles of the course, and you know, you feel the temperature dropping as you each mile you climb higher, and you have these big trees that are complete antithesis of like that salt flat and the smell of like burned wood in the desert. It's just coming across the finish line was like, okay, it just was that like that moment of like wow, and like sharing that with the team, and also there were other people that yeah, I just was thinking through my mind that we're probably following like family or friends, and people that follow our adventures, and that was just exciting to share that with everybody.
You stormed over the finish line. I remember seeing the video. You were doing like 5-minute miles towards the finish line. Yeah. And where does this finish rate compared to your previous win? Yeah, is there a massive knowledge and better runner when you look back, or is it two sort of similar runners? I mean, of course you've learned things along the way, but how does this compare to the first win?
Yeah, the first win was really special because that was like that was definitely my biggest win up to that point in 2014, and it kind of just opened up a whole lot of other doors of opportunities once that happened. Like I got invited by the China to go and do the Gobi Trail Ultra. It was like a 241-mile stage race, and they covered the cost for Marshall and I to come out and do that race, which was amazing. And I did another thing with the Marathon des Sables. We did a documentary with that, and that was another opportunity that opened up. So it opened the door to other things that were like beyond what I had expected, far beyond what I expected. But this one was also very sweet because now I'm an older runner, and so maybe the expectations are that I can't, maybe I'm over my prime or something like that. And now I'm like, no, it's like what we think. It's like I don't like to hear any like you can't do this or we can't do this. I mean, that's something that fires you up, Dion, I know as well, and Rob. And so this is just like I'm not done yet. So I see coming back next year, the year after that, and Chris Kosman, he's gonna be stuck with me for a while.
Dion,
Awesome.
what was going through your mind at the finish line, and then will you ever be talked back into trying
Come
Badwater
on,
again
yes.
by Harvey?
Well, it was a special moment crossing the finish line. As I mentioned earlier, Chris was actually at the first 100-mile race I did, the Mount Gallagher Ultra. Dan Lawson, Andrew Kim, Jimmy Dean Freeman. A lot of Badwater people. I can't even think of all of their names. Beck was there. So I met all of these people at Mount Gallagher. They were like the best Badwater ambassadors ever, telling me about this incredible race and how difficult it was and the application process, etc. And I remember sort of hanging out with Chris afterwards and talking to him about applying for Badwater and the journey to get to the race, get through Badwater, be there, be part of it all amongst amazing runners like Harvey, Pete, Mickey, past the Lopez team, past runners like Mick and Dan and those phenomenal people as well that I'm friends with. It made it special for me just to be on the course and just to be in the same breath as Harvey is something I'd never have dreamt of back in 2016 when I wasn't even running these long distance races. So the journey has been a long journey to get to that finish line, not just the 135 miles, then to experience it and to share it also with my wife, Lucia, who's been through the roller coaster ride of life journey. And then, of course, our amazing crew, yourself, Aaron and Joe. And that was just crossing that finish line with everyone, and that photo, I just love. I look at the photo every day now. It's of just us all in smiles, crossing the finish line hand in hand together. And for me, that's what it really was. That you couldn't do it without the rest of your team. You couldn't have done it without all of those other races and all those other things that you've been through to get to that point. So in a way, I don't want to go back because it was such a beautiful moment. I don't know if it could ever be replicated again.
That makes a lot of sense. Well, let's close this with some puppy.
Some puppy love. Gobi's gone back to sleep. Come on, Gobi.
She's trying to jump up here. Come on. There we go. There we go. Look at that.
Oh yeah, I can see the resemblance.
You see the resemblance?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
absolutely.
look at Gobi. Gobi is very cute. Yeah.
You might have at Lara. She was walking around as well. So yeah, Gobi's got a swim. It's a bit cooler here in Oregon today. Swimming, which would be fun.
I bet. So is her one of her favorite things to go for the walk and a run still, or swim?
Yeah,
or?
Still loves going out on an adventure. The deer walk. We're in a really small town, and there's probably 500-700 people that live here, and the deer just walk through the town. And Gobi loves chasing deer, and she gets very excited. So the simple pleasures.
It's still pretty. It's amazing to think back how she joined you and just it ran along with you. The first was it 3 segments of the race, and then she jumped across the water.
Tiny little legs as well. Like
right.
to have run 80 miles is pretty incredible. But yeah, her desert days and her ultra running days are over. Of course, there was no way we could. I'd love to have crossed the finish line with Gobi at Badwater, but too hot. She doesn't like the heat. Yeah.
I can't imagine crewing with a dog in the car the whole time. Even Gobi, who is like the best behaved dog I've ever seen my whole life.
Yeah.
Adorable, super nice, but no way.
That's so funny. Carly is not the best behaved.
I think I remember you telling me that.
Yeah. Yeah, she gets feisty. If I go running without her, she'll come and bite my calf muscles. She goes and bites the calves. She's always trying to get the mailman or mail delivery person. Yeah, she's naughty. Even she's naughty dog. But she's dogs are amazing, aren't they? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, she brings so much joy and happiness to our lives, and it's been an incredible journey with Gobi as well. But it's great to see that, and that's how we sort of started talking, is through your love for rescue dogs as well, which is awesome. And we actually ran Badwater and raised a good wedge of cash for a rescue home in Edinburgh in Scotland. So that was kind of cool to tie that in as well.
It's really neat.
Well, I can't thank you guys enough. I think we've run out of recording time here. Thank you for making this happen. I know at the awards dinner we were chatting actually with the Lopez team right there, and I'm just happy that you guys made this happen. I learned a ton. Hopefully the listener and the viewers picked up some secrets and learned more about you guys, and I just really appreciate you both taking so much time out of your busy days. And now we got the dogs on too, which is awesome.
And now we've got all of Harvey's secrets. I might come back.
I know. I really hope you do, Dion. But I know you're definitely coming back next year with Rob. And like you were saying, there are so many amazing places out in Death Valley to see. Once you get out there, there are some, especially if you could get like a 4x4 vehicle. Like there are some really neat spots you would love to explore.
Yeah, that's definitely on the plans. Well, if Rob will have me, well, let's see. First of all, I look forward to seeing your film, Rob, and how you've captured it all out there.
Probably the only person I can talk into doing that. So. But,
and Dion, do you have any other races ahead in the next 6 months, or anything else you're preparing for now?
I'm going back to stage in October called the Trans-Pecos. It's around the Big Bend area. It's going to be fun to go back to stage racing. It's going to be fun to be out there. I've never run around there. So yeah, it's just going to be good to be back in that environment and to go and hopefully, just enjoy it and have fun, but run well again. So yeah, I'm looking forward to just picking it back up again now and training for that. What about yourself?
I've got a 24-hour race that's about 3.5 weeks away. So your race is in what month?
October.
October. Hey, if you want to come on out, it's in Minnesota. You can stay with my parents. No worries. It's in the Twin Cities, and it's like it was my first ultra 24 years ago or 25 years ago.
Oh,
So they have a 24-hour race, a 12-hour race, and a 6-hour race. But it's a total difference from the stage race. You don't have to carry anything. It's all like there, and every loop it's total opposite. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it because I haven't run the race since maybe 2011 or 12, and I'm gonna try to do my best that I've run for that race. And so
Awesome.
It's kind of neat to compete against my 20-year-old self.
Are you in prep for Bigs too eventually?
Bigs, of course, yeah. Bigs will be the next. That's the next AA race. Bigs will be, big time. I'm super excited about that. Rob, how about you? What's your next? Anything in the next 6 months?
Yeah, Leadville Bike is in less than 2 weeks, I want to say, and then the 10K the following day, and Leadville 100 a week later, the run. So
it's all happening. It's going to be fun to watch, Rob. Going to be fun to watch.
I mean, everyone has to look at the train wreck, like it's just no, I'm feeling a little bit better than I was during the 50, going into the 50. So I'm trying to build all this back. COVID hit me hard with just all my training got out of whack. So I really feel like Leadman this year is getting me right on track. And then next year I'll be doing Black Canyon 100K along with the what is the race in Miami that Bob puts on? The
Keys 100.
Keys 100.
Keys 100.
Yeah.
Hopefully in anticipation of dragging
Badwater.
Dion out. Yeah.
I love it. That's exciting. I'm happy to hear that.
Well, thank you guys so much, and let's all stay in touch. And if we want to line up another conversation whenever you guys are up for it, you're always invited. So thank you guys. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Rob, and great chatting with you, Harvey. Good to catch up.
Likewise, fellas. Likewise.
Let's see if I can turn off the live stream.
Well, I'm looking forward to finishing the last 25 pages today or later on today.
Awesome, man. I'm glad you enjoyed it, and so cool to meet you out